In this edition of Southern Newsweek, junior doctors all over the country go on strike, and it's affecting more than 500 patients in the south alone. Social service agencies are about to feel the effects of a reduction in funding, and it has staff worried. And we take a closer look at a multi-million-dollar Southern Road improvement project that's proving to be unique. Kia ora, I'm Holly Buchanan. Resident doctors walked off the job throughout New Zealand at 7 a.m. earlier this week, beginning a 48-hour strike. The Resident Doctors Association is fighting for safer hours, saying patients and resident doctors are currently at risk. But the action's affecting more than 500 patients in the south.
A 48-hour strike by the nation's resident doctors began at 7 a.m. this morning, when night shift staff clocked off. Among them was Resident Doctors Association Otago spokesperson Nick Erskine. He admits strike action is a blunt tool which has affected many people. However, the association believes lives are at threat under current conditions.
Stories just trickle out ever so often, and people saying, actually I'm really worried about the fact I've done X, Y, Z, and it sometimes played off for a bit of a kind of just a chat with friends, but actually sometimes you have people who are really upset about what they've done and how exhausted they've become.
Erskine says the association has been pleading with health boards throughout the country for years in an attempt to get safer working hours for all. More than 500 Southern District Health Board patients are affected by the strike, which Erskine says is a last resort.
So the hours a resident can work would be up to 16 hours per day of being on duty within the hospital, and you can work up to 12 days in a row. So that's covering the weekend and then just rolling straight back into another week. And then the maximum of night shifts you can do in a row is 7 in a row. So you can do an entire week working 10 hours per night.
When choosing a career in medicine, people study for 6 years before starting work as a resident doctor. Then sometimes the pressure, long hours and stress is just too much.
Absolutely. So we have people who entirely drop out of medicine throughout their training. We have people who drop out of their specialist training to change to a different field because they find the work too hard and too stressful. And it's a real shame. You go through 6 years of medical school at least, and then up to 10 years of being a resident doctor, and then only to say, it's too much, I'm out of here.
Some non-unionised resident doctors are working through the strike to ensure patient safety. Elective procedures have been postponed for the 48-hour period, and consultants or senior medical professionals are covering shortfalls in patient care. The major southern DHB hospitals at Dunedin, Waikari and Invercargill are the most affected in the south. Resident doctors are due to return to work at 8 a.m. Thursday morning. Daryl Baser, The South Today.
Two of Dunedin's visitor attractions have scored highly on a website that offers advice to millions of travellers worldwide. Some of the country's top museums and exhibitions were featured on the TripAdvisor survey, but it was a recently updated local museum and a culturally significant experience that attracted great reviews.
The results of a TripAdvisor survey have been positive for two Dunedin attractions. The Dunedin Chinese Garden is currently rated as number 19 out of 96, an improvement from its previous rating of 32. And Toitu Otago Settlers Museum has been listed as the 5th best museum in New Zealand. The museum director says it's a direct reflection of the staff's passion that's given them the high placing among some multi-million-dollar budget operations.
So we're behind two enormous national museums and two Peter Jackson shows, and we're sitting at number 5, so we're very, very pleased about that.
Evans believes it's not only the museums and gardens' public engagement that's led to the good reviews.
So because of the redevelopment, we've got really good bones, and we've got good cases, good displays, and we build on that, and we work very hard to keep the standard as high, and we continually review what we're doing and make sure that what we're doing works.
Both venues have exceeded visitor expectations. Last year, 303,000 people went through Toitu, and the Chinese Garden had a bumper season with 43,000 visitors. And Evans says the TripAdvisor reviews have a definite impact.
We know that people read them, We know that people look for things to do in Dunedin, and because we're number one, every time TripAdvisor does anything promotional about Dunedin, we show up as a number one attraction to visit, which is just fantastic.
Evans is pleased with the Dunedin public's response to both facilities and hopes the TripAdvisor reviews will continue to attract more visitors in the future. Dee Karen, The South Today.
A handful of Dunedin's social service agencies are losing funding to provide budget advice to the city's most needy. The amount of money on offer to budget advisors throughout the country is dropping at the start of November by $3 million. And Southern staff are concerned.
There's less money to advise those who have even less money. In January this year, the government announced a change to the way budget advice services would be run from the start of November. Less than 3 weeks out from implementation, Dunedin's social service agencies are worried about how it's going to pan out.
There was a fear when this process started and the tenders opened that the funding would mainly go to large national providers. I guess we've seen a little bit of that happen in other areas. So we were quite worried. We're just a little organisation based in Dunedin, but we felt pretty strongly that we provide a good service, so we decided to go for it, and we've come out the other side.
Dunedin's Anglican Family Care has lost its funding to provide budget advice. Director Nicola Taylor didn't want to appear on camera today, but says the Ministry of Social Development hasn't made contact about where their clients can go to. She says one staff member has left to find other employment due to the uncertain situation and has not been replaced. Taylor says the organisation had 15 budget advice clients, and she's been given no direction about which organisation to refer them on to. Andrew Henderson of the Dunedin Budget Advisory Service says that changes will affect other service providers more. He's feeling fortunate, even though the service is losing money.
It's been a very difficult few months, but we have been successful, so our service will continue in Dunedin, which is a wonderful thing. I think we provide an important service. So yeah, we're one of the lucky ones, that's for sure.
The South Today also put calls into the Corpac Trust, Presbyterian Support Otago and the Methodist Mission. Director of Catholic Social Services Mike Tonks says the agency didn't tender for a contract to provide budget advice services and hasn't been affected. Laura Black of the Methodist Mission says what she finds most concerning is the delay in the process. She says if each and every change process is like this, then some providers will not survive. Daryl Baser, The South Today.
World Sight Day was recently observed and the occasion was marked with festivities in the Octagon. A range of tasks were available to the public so they could experience what it's like operating with low vision. And amidst all the fun, there was a serious message for the government.
Taking on the challenges vision impaired people deal with on a day-to-day basis isn't as easy as it looks. To celebrate World Sight Day, a variety of activities and information was available to the public.
You know, we all know people who are losing their sight, who struggle to read and maybe aren't allowed to drive, and you think, well, they can still see. What's this all about? So this is so people can find out what it's all about.
A petition calling on the government to budget money on pedestrian safety was being signed. Hood says it's a major issue for people with failing eyesight.
In New Zealand, over the last 10 years, 4 times as many pedestrians as cyclists have been killed on our roads. That's huge.
One of the challenges was to throw and catch a ball while wearing low vision glasses, and it proved to be quite difficult. The Aging Gracefully dance company also performed. One dancer started losing her sight about 3 years ago, and joining the group has helped her develop balance and get her back to normal life.
A lot of us can see little bits, and it's still very disorientating, especially if you've been sighted and you start losing your eyesight.
The group's performance centred around the Dunedin-developed Victor Viz reflective walking sticks, a big help for people wanting to be seen crossing the road. For some of the performers it was especially challenging, but also rewarding.
So actually learning something, preparing it, rehearsing it, and then actually performing in front of people is a huge esteem builder, great for the self-confidence.
The day was set to continue at the library with a series of talks and a debate. And for those who gave the challenges a go, they've been given an insight into the everyday challenges the vision impaired face. Dee Karen, The South Today.
Millions of dollars is being pumped into state highway improvements throughout Otago and Southland. It's part of a visiting drivers project aimed at making roads safer for foreigners and residents alike. And the concept is proving to be unique on a world scale.
Local highways are about to become busier as the summer tourist season approaches. That's got 15 agencies working on a visiting drivers project aimed at preventing crashes. The New Zealand Transport Agency is involved and says it's about identifying improvements to the transport system for overseas drivers.
And that involves working at the pre-booking stage, the booking stage, when the visitors are in flight to New Zealand, when they've arrived, and improvements to the actual road network on the ground.
The government's on board, as are police and territorial authorities, as well as rental vehicle organisations and tourism agencies. Harland says the project's targeted at Otago, Southland and Westland.
And the reason for that is that's where the highest proportion of crashes are occurring compared to local licence holders.
Nationally, the number of fatal and injury crashes involving foreign licence holders is only about 6%, but in the Deep South and Lower West Coast, that figure's as much as 25%. Harland says it's partly because roads in those areas are challenging and unlike what drivers overseas are used to. All partner organisations are contributing to the project's ongoing cost. The NZTA is putting in $25 million over the next 2 tourist seasons.
$1 million of that is going to be focused around an education campaign, and that's targeted particularly with overseas visitors in mind around our driving conditions and our roads being different, and also reminding New Zealanders about our host responsibility, because tourism is an important industry for us.
About $15 million is for actual road improvements on the state highway network. That includes things like slow vehicle lanes, pull-off areas, rumble strips and no passing lines. The money's being evenly divided between Otago, Southland and Westland.
And there's another 8.7 million which we've got on the table for co-investment with local government. Visitors use local roads and some of them can be improved from a safety perspective.
There are all sorts of apps and online tools that have been developed for foreign drivers through the project.
Nowhere else in the world has there been a combined effort to target visiting drivers to your country.
Some of the state highway improvements should be undertaken locally during summer. Ultimately, it's about making the roads safer for visitors and New Zealanders alike. Rosie Mannins, The South Today.
Coming up on Southern Newsweek, a European idea makes its way to Wanaka, and Dunedin's Botanic Garden gets a new tree that marks a milestone in the Hare Krishna movement. Welcome back. An adventurous activity in mountainous terrain has launched in Wanaka. It's called the Via Ferrata, and it's a stairway of iron rungs designed for rock climbers who want the added feature of extreme safety. The idea came from the mountains of Europe, where it was once used by farmers and soldiers to access higher ground. The rungs are drilled into the rock, and Mark Morrison from Wildwire Wanaka says safety is paramount.
So when you're thinking about climbing up here, you kind of think that potentially one of the rungs might pull out and you're going to be strong enough to do that. Well, we've had those engineered and tested specifically, and we did it the modern way with a hydraulic ram and some technological equipment.
Morrison says pretty much anyone can do it as long as they're physically active and keen. There's 2 levels of climbing difficulty available, but there are plans to take the Via Ferrata even higher in the future. The Otago Aero Club is enjoying the use of its new microlight aircraft. Its specifications make it perfectly suited to teaching new students how to fly, and it's exactly what the club needs to support growth.
The Otago Aero Club has made a new acquisition to increase its fleet of teaching aircraft. It's an American-made, dual-controlled microlight. It has a fixed undercarriage, which means the tail doesn't have to be lifted for takeoff. And members say that makes it better for learning.
It's something very new for the club. As I said, we had a tail drag before. The fixed undercarriage, the tricycle with the low wing, are easier to fly. And this aircraft is state of the art. So yeah, we're very excited about the future with this plane at the club.
There are over 80 aircraft on site, with some belonging to the club and others privately owned. The club has been growing in recent times, reaching around 180 members. And Cunningham says they've spent much of the weekend taking turns flying in the new microlight.
I flew the aircraft for the first time yesterday, and yeah, it's an awesome aircraft. Puts a big smile on your face.
The plane is powered with a Rotax 912 engine and has a top speed of 220 kilometres an hour. Like the club's other aircraft, this plane operates with a dual control system, with the instructor seated alongside. Cunningham says learning is more affordable these days, and anyone over the age of 16 can do it.
The microlight category, we have quite a number of instructors here. And they'll just ease you through the process. There's no speed to it, you take it at your own pace, and yeah, it's most enjoyable.
The Otago Aero Club is the oldest of its kind in the country. With its growing membership, the club hopes this new plane will help them carry on. Jack Conroy, The South Today.
50 years of the Hare Krishna movement is being celebrated in Dunedin with a ceremony at the Botanic Gardens. The Eastern religion was brought to the West, arriving in America in 1966, and since then its followers have set up hundreds of vegetarian restaurants. In Dunedin, Krishna devotees are still feeding more than 200 students daily.
A meeting of cultures and celebrating the passing of time. The Hare Krishna faith came from the East to the West in 1966, when it was founded in America with the birth of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. His worship, the Mayor of Dunedin, Dave Cull, was invited to help plant a kowhai at the Botanic Gardens to celebrate the milestone.
Oh, this is a lovely gesture by Hare Krishna. It's a reminder that in a competitive, consumer-driven world there are other values, and that's what this speaks to. So thank you to Hare Krishna for giving the community this tree and planting it here.
The planting was a team effort between the Mayor and Dunedin Hare Krishna coordinator Jane Beecroft. She's thankful to the city and gardens for allowing the planting of a tree to mark the occasion.
Yeah, it means a lot to us actually, like it's very, very significant. You know, like I was explaining earlier on, our whole movement was started under a tree in Tompkins Square Park in New York, so to have a tree in such a significant place here in Dunedin is very precious to our hearts. Yeah.
The organisation was given a few choices of which tree to plant in the semi-sheltered part of the Botanic Gardens. Beecroft says members chose a kowhai as it felt like a good fit. Dunedin Botanic Garden curator Alan Matchett says it's a hardy plant.
Yeah, the tree that was chosen was very purposely chosen for its type and age. It's about 9 years old now, and it should live a good old age, probably over 100, and fill this site in very well. We've lost a number of trees, so it's a valuable replacement in the ongoing development of the garden.
The Hare Krishna movement in Dunedin follows the religion's ethos of feeding people cheaply and well. Members provide 200 lunches at the Otago University Students Association every day. Beecroft says the faith encourages simple living and higher thinking. Daryl Baser, The South Today.
After the break on Southern Newsweek, a couple of old birds take delivery of their next project, and a much-loved puppet display is about to get some TLC due to its formal inclusion in a museum collection. Welcome back. Takahe conservation efforts are ramping up at the Orokonui Eco Sanctuary near Dunedin. Fertilised eggs from Te Anau are being incubated by an old pair within the reserve thanks to some intervention by staff. And there's hope another surprise egg will also hatch to boost the native birds' population.
Transporting some precious cargo. Conservation staff have just introduced 2 fertilised takahe eggs from Tiano to the Orokonui Eco Sanctuary near Dunedin. There, an older pair is responsible for incubating them until the young chicks are ready to hatch in about a week's time.
Every chick or fertile egg and chick produced and juvenile fledged is great for the program, and it enables us together with Fulton Hogan and Ngaitahu to work towards shifting these birds to a new recovery site somewhere in New Zealand and establishing a self-sustaining population. So we're really excited.
The old pair inside Orokonui was thought to be infertile, hence the egg swap. But in the process, staff found one of the pair's own eggs was fertile. That's now been given to a younger takahe pair in the lower reserve, as it's younger than the 2 eggs from Tiano and could be rejected if all are placed together. It was an exciting surprise for staff who are hoping for positive results.
It's fantastic. I mean, if that hatches, well, it's another takahe in the world, and that's got to be a good thing, of course, when there's so few of them.
To date, only 1 takahe chick has been raised at Orokonui to a juvenile fledged stage. Staff say the reserve's older surrogates, Paku and Kwamin, are unlikely parents.
Mum, her parents were siblings, so genetically inappropriate really for Paku to breed en masse. And Kwamin has been a bit of a dud for most of his 15 years or so. I mean, his previous relationship, if you can put it that way, produced something like 18 infertile eggs.
As a result, the chick from the pair's fertilised egg is unlikely to be kept at the Eco Sanctuary because it would be too genetically similar for insider breeding. But if it lives, it'll be welcomed by conservationists for release somewhere else in New Zealand. Rosie Mannins, The South Today.
Thousands of dollars is going to the Cancer Society following an inaugural rally in Dunedin. The Rev and Ride charity cruise involved more than 100 vehicles of all makes and models, and organisers are planning to make it a yearly event.
Cruising for charity. Over 100 vehicles were entered in the inaugural Rev and Ride rally in Dunedin yesterday, raising a few $1,000s for the Cancer Society. The event was organised by 2 local women as the main fundraiser for their Relay for Life team.
Rather than just doing small things to fundraise, we thought, oh well, why not do one big thing and do all our fundraising at once? So that's sort of where this came from. We're all car nuts, so it's kind of an easy fix really.
Participants gathered at the Dunedin Ice Stadium yesterday morning before travelling en masse through Outram and Hindon. The end of the ride saw them rolling into Dunedin's Oval about 1 o'clock for an afternoon of entertainment.
Lots of good feedback about the run, not many other cars, and thankfully no sheep jams that we did come across when we did the recce the other day. So yeah, it was good. It's a good run.
Vehicles were judged in various categories, raffles were awarded, and live music was playing for participants at the nearby Kensington. For kids, there was a lolly scramble by local firefighters, as well as lots of games. Chambers says she was blown away by how many people supported the event, with 115 cars and bikes officially counted at the start. The only criteria was vehicles had to be road legal.
Absolutely crazy, the variety. As I said, we've got hogs, motorbikes, we've got the Vespas, but we had the Vintage Car Club, of course, which is just fabulous. We've got a car here, I think it might be a Chevy, I'm not 100% sure. 8 years in the making, and this was its first day out today, and it looks pristine. It's absolutely outstanding.
Chambers has been involved in the Dunedin Relay for Life for years. She and her teammates are planning to continue holding the Rev and Ride each year to further boost local charities.
People are very, very generous in our community. We're very lucky.
The Dunedin Relay for Life is taking place at Forsyth Bar Stadium on Saturday, November 19. Rosie Mannins, The South Today.
And finally, a beloved Dunedin attraction that has entertained families for decades is getting some extra care. Toi Otago Settlers Museum has placed the Pixie Town display into its formal collection. And because of that, the conservation work will help retain its charm for future generations.
Conservators at Toi Otago Settlers Museum have been busy tending to the ageing mechanical Pixie Town display units. It's a well-loved piece of history that's entertained generations of families at Christmas, and now it's part of the museum's collection. The older mechanisms need maintenance each year to keep them working, and reports from the Otago Museum have meant staff are treating the displays with conservation the top priority.
Those conservation reports are driving a renovation of the units to help them go forward from here, and also so it helps with their preservation into the future, so the third and fourth generation Dunedinites can actually enjoy the pixies.
Kilroy says it's important to retain the humour that the original creator put into the display.
The pixies are very much a social commentary and a snapshot of how we saw ourselves in the 50s and the 60s, because Fred Jones, who actually made them, had a considerable sense of humour, and some of his sense of humour has kind of a little bit been lost because people have sanitised them a little bit.
Care has always been taken with the displays, but now there's more consultation with experts and conservators when it comes to cleaning and maintenance. Kilroy says the whirring and clattering sound of the pixies is part of its magic, and it's important to retain many of the uneven movements.
If I went and changed the cams in certain kinds of way, I take away part of the story that he was originally trying to tell.
And sometimes that story may not be as PC as you would expect in today's society. But the museum's visitor experience manager says grandparents and parents coming to reminisce still have a laugh about the display.
There was definitely a sense of humour that the maker had when he put these together, and they are of their time. And you can see that there is a big change. Haven't had any protests so far anyway that I've been aware of.
35,000 visitors take in the Pixie Town experience at Christmas, but this year it will only be open from the 9th to the 24th of December. Dee Karen, The South Today.
And that's all for this edition of Southern Newsweek. You can see more of Southern News by following us on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter, or via our website channel39.co.nz. I'm Holly Buchanan. Thanks for watching.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.